How is it going, hockey fans? We are back with some major hockey news with a major trade breaking out today. There was, the Bo Horvat trade last week, but today, Hank, I'd say is probably the first blockbuster trade as we approach the NHL trade deadline here, as your New York Rangers acquire winger Vladimir Tarasenko from the St. Louis Blues, as well as defenseman Nico Mikkola, in exchange for winger Sammy Blais, who you guys got in the Pavel Buchnevich trade a little over a year ago now. Defenseman Hunter Skinner, a 2023 first and a 2024 fourth round pick. Both those picks are conditional. The 2023 first, will be the later pick between the Rangers first and the Stars first, which you guys got in the Longfist trade. And the 2024 fourth will become a third round pick if the Rangers make the playoffs, which I think everyone would say that is going to be a third round pick because that's going to happen. Good thing for you guys, the Blues are retaining 50% of the $7.5 million salary. He is obviously a UFA. So this is pretty much, a straight rental, Hank, going all in on the Stanley Cup this year. And they did also waive defenseman Labor Hayek as a result of this trade. But, I'll let you start off this one first. This is your team. What were your thoughts when you saw this trade news?
All right, now I am just going to say straight off the bat and get right to the point. This was a win for the Rangers. And let me tell you why. As I was literally having lunch with my mom at a diner when this news broke out. And when I saw the whole thing go up, I was like, my eyes were like bugging when I saw my phone. And like, I could not stop hitting the refresh button on my Twitter app as I was like looking up, because I'm like, who do they give up? Who do they give up?
Yeah.
And then when I saw the players that they gave up, I'm like, all I could say was, Chris Drury's a wizard, because Sammy Blais, that's addition by subtraction, essentially. I mean, he was all right for us at the beginning of that 2021-22 season, but unfortunately, he ended up getting hurt because he was slew banned, or I should say. And then, of course, I should also mention that, they got rid of a prospect in Hunter Skinner, who we really didn't hear much about him over the past few years. So not a bad player to part with. And then you get the draft picks too. Those draft picks do not mean shit if you are trying to go all in for a Stanley Cup. So those two picks, Hunter Skinner and a Sammy Blais, who really did not do anything this year. And I think a good amount of that has to do with the fact that he was really trying to recover from the slew ban he received back in, I want to say, November of 2021. So, heck yeah, that is a win for the Rangers. Now, I also want to mention the defenseman we got. What was his name?
Mikkola.
Yep. I think that's another good piece to acquire too, because the Rangers needed a third left-handed defenseman, and he is definitely an upgrade over Libor Hayek. So I definitely like that move a lot there too. And so I would say that the Rangers definitely are a better team now than, say, 24 hours ago, for sure. Now, let's not kid ourselves. We know that Vlad Tarasenko has been dealing with injuries for a good chunk of the last 4 years. But when you look at the numbers that he's posted with the St. Louis Blues, the Blues are a team that has pretty much been regressing ever since that Stanley Cup win. And I think trading him to the Rangers was their way of saying, thank you for helping us win the Cup. We owe you one. Now let's see how much better you can do with a really good roster. And Noah, you can call me like a homer or bias or whatever you want for saying this, but I really think the change of scenery is going to work wonders for him, because look at this. Imagine seeing him on a line with Artemi Panarin and Mika Zibanejad. Now you don't even have to imagine it. That's exactly what's going to be the reality of the whole situation. You can't, I don't know how much more I can really emphasize the fact that the Rangers absolutely won this trade.
Yeah, I agree. I think they did win this trade. And here's one thing I'll say. When we were approaching this trade deadline, and look, everyone knew that the Rangers were probably going to trade for a winger. whether it was Patrick Kane or the hot name that we mentioned on Pucking Around Tuesday, Timo Meyer. Uh,
Mhm.
First of all, I thought Tarasenko came out of nowhere. When I saw that, I didn't think he'd be going to the Rangers. I thought he might get shipped because clearly the St. Louis Blues are waving the white flag on the season, right? They're trading away their big guys. I expect Ryan O'Reilly to come shortly after this. But for them to get it in Tarasenko, and I think the biggest win the Rangers got from this trade, first of all, it's nice and all that they didn't give up anything. I mean, I thought for sure they'd have to give up one of Lafreniere or Kakko if they were trading for a superstar winger. They did not. They traded for Skin. They traded away Skinner, who might be a decent prospect, but I'm gonna be honest, I don't know a lot about this guy. He's not what I'd call a top prospect by any means. And then, like you
No.
said, the picks. It's like what the Rams did, trading away all their first round picks. Well, they won a Super Bowl because of it. Yeah, they stink now, but if you win a Super Bowl because of it, do you really care at the end of the day? Mikkola, this isn't like some 21-year-old prospect who's never played in the league. He has played in 50 games for the Blues this season, so he's just a respectable bottom pair defenseman. You'll take that. But I think the good thing for the Rangers, the biggest win they got, the Blues retaining the salary. Get a guy like Vladimir Tarasenko only at 3.75 million is an absolute steal. Now, you're right. He does have a pretty bad injury history. He has 29 points in 38 games this season. So, it's not like, he's doing respectable, but it's not like he's going out there and, scoring 50 goals or anything. But like you said, he is playing on a Blues team that has been, well, let's be generous and call it mediocre this season. And it's not going to be like that when he's on the Rangers. Like you said, if he's going to play alongside Zibanejad and Panarin, who are two superstars, in my opinion, that production would go all the way up. By the way, you have to remember, Hank, this was a guy that only last year, so not a long time ago, had 82 points in 75 games played. He can be a point per game player, I think, for the Rangers. And like you said, gifted goal scorer adds another scoring threat to the Rangers. This is a very good move, I think, for the Rangers. I don't know if it's quite one to where, I'd go as far as to say, man, they're my Stanley Cup favorites. But I
Oh,
would
no.
say I think they're right there. I think they have just probably about as good a shot as anybody if Tarasenko works out. And I guess, one last thing I want to ask you. Do you think this is it for the Rangers, or do you think they're gonna try looking for someone else? Because I saw with this trade earlier, they're like 94,000 above the cap now. So if they, maybe move some guys around they don't really want anymore, maybe clear a couple million up, they might be able to make another move.
I mean, I would love to see if they can make another small move and get like some center depth. I remember hearing that Tyler Mott's name has been in
Mm,
some rumors. I mean, I would love the idea to have him back, but the real question I have is why didn't you just re-sign him during the off season? But
yeah.
that's really neither here neither there. I hope that Ryan O'Reilly isn't really unrealistic because, like I said, I still think the Rangers could probably use another veteran leader like him in their lineup. I mean, look how much it's helped a lot of teams in years past when they needed to go on and take that extra level forward. But that being said, like I still think maybe there's another move or two that Drury has up his sleeve, but this is a start and a very big start. And by the way, I need to go on a little bit of a side tangent right now
Okay.
because let's take a look back at the Pavel Buchnevich trade.
Hmm.
They traded him, you may recall, for Sammy Blais.
Yep.
And many have been complaining about that trade being terrible. And make no mistake, I didn't really think it was necessarily a great trade at the time that it happened. But looking back now, you were able to flip Sammy Blais for Tarasenko. So now let's ask the question. Did they really lose the Pavel Buchnevich trade after all? Maybe not. Who knows?
I mean, when you think about it, Hank, they essentially traded Pavel Buchnevich for Vladimir Tarasenko, which
Yeah.
like you say, like you said, I think is a big win for them. I will say I think Buchnevich has looked pretty good for the Blues from what I've seen.
Oh
So,
no, he's good. I'm just saying. At least it's not. It
yeah,
doesn't look as bad
yeah,
now.
no, No, I agree. And plus, this is the thing with that trade, Hank. That was a move the Rangers needed to make because they weren't going to be able to re-sign him. You had to trade him to get
Right.
something back. So get Sammy Blais back. You had him in this package. You get Tarasenko. I think it's a really solid move. I guess one last final question before we wrap it up here. Do you have any thoughts on Libor Hayek getting waived?
He really was a player that did not end up working out, and this was a tough one because I think with Libor Hayek getting waived, that means now everyone from the Ryan McDonagh trade is now pretty much gone because they
Hmm.
traded him. They were hoping that Vlad Nemestikov would be that center that does well for a while because remember he had a lot of points with the Tampa Bay Lightning right before the McDonagh trade, but then that didn't work out and he ended up trading like right at the beginning of the 2019-2020 season. Brett Howden didn't exactly pan out as a third line center, and then Hayek was a defenseman that I think they had hopes for, didn't really pan out. And then I think the main guy that they got in that trade was one of the main guys, or the picks they got was Nils Lundqvist. And as much as he's shown like signs of doing well with Dallas, the problem with keeping him was you had too many defensemen on the roster. Somebody had to be a casualty. So it all but pretty much means they lost out on the McDonagh trade from 4 years ago. Sorry if I'm going off on that little tangent, but I think that's definitely kind of relevant to what's going on right now. But in any event, I'm not saying it's a bad move. Libor Hayek didn't really do
Hmm.
much with the big roster, anyways.
Yeah, and the Rangers definitely won't be hurting on the defensive core. I'd
Mm-hmm.
say you still got Fox, Truba, Keandre Miller, Braden Schneider as well. Those are two really young guys there as well. So I think the Rangers will be fine, and they're perfectly
Don't
poised
forget
for
about Ryan Lindgren either.
Ryan Lindgren as well. Yeah, they're poised for a nice deep playoff run. Of course, it helps when you have Igor Shesterkin in that can just stand on his head, do whatever he wants, pretty much to keep you in a game, even if you're not playing great. But for Vladimir Tarasenko, I think he will play great because he's going to be on a very very good team, and if he can just stay healthy, that's the only thing I would add in. That's the only concern I have about him. I think he's phenomenal, very talented goal scorer. He's going to have plenty of service. I think if he can just stay on the ice, I think it's going to work out great for you guys. So that's going to do it for our little video here about Vladimir Tarasenko being traded to the New York Rangers, St. Louis Blues, entering a rebuild. Let us know your thoughts on the trade in the comments if you have any specific thoughts. But until next time, from myself, Noah Dog Dibler, and my co host and good buddy here, Hank and Dictor, we'll see you next time.